Good morning again, gathered here at St Mary Magdalene's. It was St Mary Magdalene's feast day on the 22nd of July. It went by on a weekday. We have been blessed by some wonderful readings, and that continues for this next part of ordinary or ordered season. I want to draw your particular attention to Romans, because remember I told you last week in Romans we read this thing that almost sounded like an ending. For I am convinced that neither death nor life nor things that are or things in the present or things to come or angels or anything can separate us from the love of God made known to us in Christ Jesus. It sounds like an ending, but it's only halfway through. And I wanted you to pay particular attention to the home stretch from chapters 9 to 16. We'll get one portion of reading. I'm not going to make it the main topic of the sermon until we get to the last 3 chapters. But I just want you to keep your ear out to where we're going in Romans. The next 3 weeks, chapters 9, 10 and 11, Paul breaks his heart because his own people, his own tribe, the Jewish people, haven't all said yes to following Jesus as the Messiah. Many have, but not all. And he breaks his heart because he can't understand why, he thought he was the most reluctant convert, like C.S. Lewis, the one who was so determined to extinguish this movement that thought that Jesus was the Messiah, the one who came as David had come, as the anointed, to bring them salvation. And I suggested last time that part of that was because their expectations were limited to an earthly liberation, to a military liberation, and that when Jesus came offering the salvation from all that binds us, every sin, and offers it to every nation, not just to Israel alone, but to every nation, including the Gentiles, that explains some of the rejection by some. But Paul's got to figure this out for himself. And he says in this one that the promises must be fulfilled, because God doesn't make promises that he does not fulfill. God is faithful. So we'll hear him working through this over the next 3 weeks, and then we'll get to very practical ways in which he's going to suggest that the church be united so that it can fulfill its missional role to tell others right to the ends of the earth. So keep your ear on that. Meanwhile, we're going to the gospel readings until we get to those last 3 weeks of Romans. So that'll be when we read from chapters 14, 15 and 16. We'll just do the very end of that marathon that Paul's writing to all these little tiny churches in Rome who don't speak to one another because they regard themselves as irreconcilably different. We'll pick that up as we go along. But of Matthew today, we have the feeding of 5,000. We've been reading mainly parables all these weeks, but here we go to something narrated in real time, and it's a feeding. As I suggested in the reflection, I don't think that Jesus' miraculous feedings were just as demonstrations of his divinity and supernatural powers, as if to say, they're just great miracles as proofs that Jesus is who he says he is. They're just like grand shows or demonstrations. I actually think that the way each of the gospel writers narrates them, that they are expressions of Jesus' heart and love, not just a demonstration of power, like a ta-da, but an authentic expression of Jesus' heart and God's heart to see salvation in every dimension of life. Not just, if we could separate this out as spiritual, but the God who wants to see the restoration of all things, body, mind and spirit, and who desires for the hungry what? What does God most desperately desire for the hungry? Food, that they be fed, that they be nourished. You hear it in the Magnificat, which is why we sing that sort of radical version of it. That the hungry poor shall weep no more for the bread they can never earn. They go out to work and it's still beyond them. Sometimes when they're both working to put food on the table. Mary could be describing our cost of living crisis as much as the one that plagued first century Palestine under Roman occupation. Because they would work and still no food shortage. So when Jesus sees a crowd in the first century, he sees that they're hungry and his heart's desire is to fulfill them. It does help that he is God and can manufacture food from limited resources. But notice that it's not all about God and the great tada of the miracle. There's an important step with what he does. You have to watch very carefully. There's usually 4 steps to a really important meal in the Bible. You might know them because when we do our meal, we do the same thing. We receive the bread, we take it, we bring it from the back sometimes in some of the more traditional churches, but we bring it, we take it. The second thing is we give thanks for it, we bless it. And the third thing, what's the third thing? It's very symbolic. No, that's step 5 or 6. We break it. The breaking has a great symbolic meaning for us in our most sacred meal because we remember Jesus broken for us in crucifixion. But even when the meals aren't Eucharist, the bread is still broken, not into messy fragments. It's broken into portions, in enough to hand out, so that you get a portion appropriate to feeding the hungry. So it's broken. So it's taken, it's blessed, it's broken, and then not eaten. Don't jump to it. And it's distributed or given out. It's given out. And notice Jesus doesn't run around like me, giving it all around to you. What does he do? He delegates. He incorporates the participation of the body. He gives it to the disciples and brings them, a bit kicking and screaming. If you listen to all their protests, we haven't got enough, send them away. And then I think it's Mark who says, a bit of passive aggression here. Even if we did have enough money, we wouldn't be able to buy enough to give everyone a small scrap. But notice how he delegates, incorporates the participation of the whole body. He gives it to the disciples, and the disciples gave it to the crowds. And all ate and were filled. There's a 5th action. We always skip over the eating. That's a really important step. Let's call that 5. There's a 6th action in this one, unique to this one. What's that 6th action? It's very important. They're portions. I've got to, the klasmata. The klasmata are the portions. So it's not like they're sweeping crumbs off the table. It's not just to clean up, all right, and to sweep them into the bin. They're collecting up portions. So these are portions that didn't get used in the meal. And they're good, frugal. Maybe there's a little proto-Celtic gene in there somewhere. They're gathering up in all frugality. And why? Why do you do that? Why do we have our frugalities of, look, there's enough lamb left here. I'm going to put it in Tupperware and in the fridge because what am I going to make with it? Yes, but not in our family. A shepherd's pie. We're going to make a shepherd's pie. We're going to put some of that lovely gravy in it. We're going to mash fresh potatoes and put it in the oven and have it another night. And the principle's the same. The reason they take the klasmata, these portions, don't think scraps, think portions, is because they can then be on another occasion, in another circumstance, a situation where we can continue to feed the hungry. Don't over-spiritualise the scriptures to see that God is interested in the Hebrew fashion in our body, mind and soul. We're not like the Greeks who tend to think the spiritual, the heavenly, the ideal, they're the important things, and this mortal thing is sort of just a dim reflection of it. In the Hebrew conception, God makes everything and declares it good, including the physicality of the creation in our bodies, and God's salvation includes those. So don't ever think that there's sort of the really important stuff, like the preaching and the praying and the spirituality, and then there's the mundane stuff, and anyone could do that. No, they're both holy pursuits to God, and they're integrated. And that's what the Christian community needs to regain in its understanding, that this meal contains in it God's heart to feed the hungry with good things. Yes, with news of salvation and the message of Jesus, but also in the first instance to make sure that they're fed enough to hear the message. It's like teaching the kids at school. It's no good if they haven't eaten breakfast. That's why the breakfast club is so important, Sue, because if their tummies are hungry, they won't absorb all the wisdom and the great teaching. And it's the same in the propagation of our faith. We can't just say, God bless you, be warmed and hear the gospel, unless we've fed you. Why am I talking about this? Because the hungers in our community are diverse. Every one of you has some hunger, some deficit in your life. And you could probably tell me what it is. Some people's knees don't work so good. Other people are time poor and they can't find enough time to give their obligations. Other people are underemployed. Other people are overemployed and they can't find Sabbath rest. Others can't find enough resources to put food on the table and pay the rent and put fuel in the car. The deficits are the things that we are called as community to address. Because unless we address those deficits, the chances that people will come flooding in to sit here on a Sunday and hear the gospel are unlikely. And that, you might have wondered, why was the rector giving out Stuart's business card? Has the church become a marketplace? No, because I need Stuart to have work sufficient so that he can come on a Sunday and sit here with his family. I need the same for those who are working in the different regional hospitals, and I need them to have enough of the filling of the deficits in their life that the gifting that they have can also become a blessing to the community. If we as a body do not take care of the various deficits that we see in one another's lives, the lives of the church community and the life of the wider community, then the other, what's the opposite to deficits? Those wonderful places where people are blessed with abundance, those great surpluses will not be tapped. So I am taking to the fish bits my abundance of lemons. Why? Because if I can help with, I have 7 lemon trees on my block, and that is too much lemons for any one person. But down at Fishbits, they could do with lemons, because if they get a reputation as the fish and chip shop that give out a decent piece of lemon, then their reputation will go up. They will be blessed. If they are blessed, then whatever surpluses of gifts, they will have time to be released. Do you get the principle? The early church did this. If you read the book of Acts, it's one of the best books in the whole New Testament. It says that there was not a needy person among them. Any who had great abundances, keep giving me that word, surpluses. They traded in their surpluses and brought it to the apostles, who distributed it to those who had deficits. It's the economics of the church. So if you have surpluses, your call is somehow to use those surpluses to pay what for other people might be deficits. And in doing so, we release the capacity for their surpluses to become used and blessed in our community. And if we want our 20-somethings and 30-somethings to begin participating more in the church, we have to ask them in all humility, what are the deficits that you have at the moment? When you come as not a single mum, but as the only mum who's not working, the only adult who's not working on a Sunday morning, what are the deficits that come with trying to bring children into this rather hallowed-looking environment? What are the deficits? And do we have others who have surpluses that can meet those deficits, so that other surpluses, that abundances that they may have, may meet our deficits? I was blessed twice this week because somebody out of their abundance met a deficit, which was the emptying of the gutters of the great autumn leaves, and that has been a blessing to me because it has paid one of my deficits. A plumber known to Peter Brown, who had an abundance, reminding me of the opposite to deficit, a surplus of pipe finding machinery and an excavator, brought from that surplus something that paid our deficit, and in doing something like that, it also filled some of my deficit and allowed me to use some of my surplus. My surplus was, I had the greatest teachers at Bible college. Just before I met Kate, which was just as well, I went off to Bible college and did a second degree. I had the most generous lecturers, and they gave me a surplus of teaching about the New Testament and scriptures. That's my surplus. But I can pay the surplus to people like all the deans of Australia and New Zealand when other deficits of mine are paid. Do you get the principle? Each one of you have deficits. We need to know what they are so we can help you fill them. They might not be the same as other people's deficits, but in the body, the surpluses will stand a chance to meet those deficits and thus release the gifting of the body. If we don't, we will be an impoverished community where surpluses will sit as hoarded stores, which is the worst thing to do with a surplus, isn't it? Remember the man who got the great harvest, and what did he decide to do with his great harvest? Did he decide to feed the hungry? No, he said, I will make myself bigger barns so that I can store it all up. And it does not work. So this transcends mere money and economics. It has to do with giftings and talents and passions, and and sometimes you will find them in people you did not expect them. So that is your job. I want you to identify in others this week, what are their deficits, and have I some surplus from which I could help pay that deficit, and thus awaken the kingdom and feed the hungry, fill the hungry with good things. Fill the hungry with good things. Keep watching this space as we head toward the end of Romans and see how Paul encourages the early church to do that.